Hey, how's it going, Humanities 4? Shasta College, welcome back from the Thanksgiving holiday. Hope you had something to be thankful for. And here we all are. We're in a film class watching movies, talking about them. That's something to be thankful for. I'm going to start a discussion this week, and this discussion's going to be simple. Are you missing movie theaters? Did you ever go to the movies very often? Is it okay to watch the newest Black Panther on your cell phone? Is that satisfying to you? Would you rather see it in the movie theater? Does it really matter if you're streaming it? How you get your movies? Movies have changed. Um, it's not up to me to decide what's good or bad. It's different, that is for sure. And since the pandemic, they've closed many, many, many movie theaters. Uh, can they be revived? Does it matter? Do you care? So anyway, I'm going to post that. You'll see it in the discussions. Pipe in, please, and reply to two people at least. I do pop in and look at them, believe it or not. And who doesn't? It's part of your participation. If you don't participate, you do lose points. Okay, we're down to the final 2.5 weeks. It's going to go by fast. Um, I'm going to assign the final paper this week. It's a research paper. It's going to be different than the essays where I told you to watch a movie and give me your critical opinion about the movie. This is gonna I'm gonna list about 5 topics. You choose one you want to write about. They'll be out there at the whole history of what we've covered, and you'll write a 3 to 5 page paper, MLA format with references, because you're gonna have to do some research, probably, hopefully. It's not just your opinion. It's not a personal essay. It's a research paper on a film or a director or a genre, and you'll have about 10 days to do it and finish it. Get everything in by the last week. And then the other thing you have to work on is your journal. Keep your journals up. That's good. I'll open that up. No, I'm not going to open it for you to submit it until the last week, which is another 2 weeks. So you can't submit it yet. Yes, you have to sit there and listen to these lectures, watch the documentaries, and participate for another 2.5 weeks. That's how it goes, folks. And then we're going to have holiday off, and you'll never have to watch another film again in black and white. Anyway, so this week, I want you guys, we left off talking about the 80s and how Hollywood started producing all these sequels like Rocky 1, 2, 3, Rambo 1, 2, Superman 1, 2, 3, 4, Star Wars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, where it just became the line of sequels. Like the studios made more money than they've ever made before by producing sequels. And most sequels are almost like the first film. There's very few sequels that are that much different. And I guess there's people enjoy those sequels because they want to see the same film over and over again. Um, you want to see what those characters are doing. Um, there's been a couple of great sequels in the history of sequels. I can name one right now. The Godfather Part 2 is a masterpiece. Godfather 1 is really good. Godfather 2 knocks it out of the park. So sometimes sequels are completely, utterly different movies on their own, but it's rare. It's rare. Look at Jaws 1, then look at 2, 3, 4, and then Jaws in 3D. It got worse. Maybe you love Jaws in 3D. Me personally, I was hoping the shark was going to kill all those people. I was rooting for the shark. Anyway, Quentin Tarantino made a statement the other day. This is the worst time in history of cinema. Now that sounds like someone who's been very successful, and I don't know what he has to be bitter about. He's not bitter. He's stating the facts. I don't love all those movies, but I agree with him on this one. It's hard to look at cinema, current cinema. and compare it to 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all the stuff we've covered. Now, younger generation, Gen Zs, whoever, millennials, that's their thing. Um, and perhaps through a class like this, you'll see how there are other movements, and you see how important these movements are throughout the history of cinema. That it's just not about action, it's just not about sequels or good guys against bad guys, simplistic stories. It runs a lot deeper in that. So hopefully you guys are getting that aspect of this class without too much torture for you. Um, so you'll hand in your journal the last week. Keep it updated. All you have to do is upload it. But don't ask me to upload it now because it's too soon. Class isn't over, and I want you to have as much entries in there as the course goes. Okay. If you have any questions, you know how to get hold of me. You know how to text me. You know how to email me. Give me a heads up. Okay, so here we have the 80s, and it's Hollywood has kind of become this glorified sequel machine. Lots of big budget celebrities are getting the biggest paychecks they've ever gotten. People like Tom Cruise and Harrison Ford are just for showing up for a day's work are getting millions and millions of dollars to show up for one day. This is happening across the board. So where does a small filmmaker who's got an idea for a script, where does he go? Or where does she go to get her film made somehow? Well, Robert Redford, very successful actor and producer. You might know him from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, um, Way We Were, and many, many others. Um, he he put his beliefs up front by taking over the United States Film Festival, which was out of Utah, because he's got a big ranch up there, and he renamed it Sundance after his character, the Sundance Kid. And in the late 80s, it became a beacon of hope for what we now call indie filmmakers. Are they still out there? I mean, yes, they're independent filmmakers, but this is low budget filmmaking in the highest order. Um, what you call an indie film now could be 30, 40 million dollars, whereas during this time it was anything from 10,000 to 150,000, which I know sounds a lot of money to you and I, but it isn't when it comes to making a movie. And so his whole purpose, his manifesto was to give uh, young filmmakers an opportunity to get their films seen on a major screen and possibly purchased from distributors coming out of New York or Hollywood, wherever they come out of, and you can maybe get a career. And so, one of the huge films that uh, came out about 1989, I believe, Sex, Lies, and Videotape with Steven Soderbergh, did exactly that. It's very well done. It's very but modestly priced. You might recognize some of the actors in it. They've done other things besides this, and he has a commercial way of filming things. He did Ocean's 11, 13, whatever, how many sequels he's done. So he knows his craft. Um, and this movie was a big hit at the Sundance Film Festival, and a distributor bought it for many millions of dollars. That means Sondheim, Soderbergh, rather, uh, could pay his people. He got paid because often when you make a low budget film, you everybody works for less wages than they're normally. And if you don't have anybody who's a movie star or a known actor, they work for free. You do promise them to be paid if you sell the film. That's how I made a couple films doing that. It's called deferred payment. It became possible to do a movie on 30, $40,000 with your friends as actors and do the original music like we did and do everything ourselves. And it was possible to submit to Sundance. And if you luckily got in, I didn't, um, you might be seen by a distributor who will pay you millions. A great example of that would be the Rich Project, which I think pa- they made it for 60, $70,000, and it was sold for $5 million. Um, they did well on that. Um, then the distributors have to put up a lot of money to make prints of the film because it's long before digital. We're not talking high digital film now. I'm talking about celluloid still. You had to shoot on film. Um, the video cameras was not very good, and so you didn't want your film to look like that. Video was considered good for weddings and news TV, but not for making independent feature film. That all changed about 10 years after the fact when digital cameras became what they are today, essentially. Everybody's using them, even major Hollywood people are using them because they could replicate celluloid. There's, to me, I can still spot the difference, but that's all right. Um, I got to make a couple movies in film, 16 millimeter. Um, the standard is 35 millimeter. We couldn't afford that. Um, and there was something about the craft and the art of celluloid going through the camera, and you hope, cross your fingers, that's going to turn out, that's going to be in focus, that the boom is not going to be in the actors' faces, the actors are going to make mistakes. There's a lot of pressure on you. And so you hopefully rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. And when you roll camera, you're not wasting film at all. So, uh, Bumper Crop Beer was 1992 at Sundance, where they had. I'm going to post these today on. Well, I'll post them this week. You'll see it uh, on Canvas. There was a couple, three films. Um, one of them was The Laws of Gravity, um, and by Nick Gomez, who used to be Hal Hartley's editor. Hal Hartley, one of my favorite filmmakers. Um, Hartley got into Sundance too with some of his films, but the ones I want to talk about right now are Nick Gomez's film that he made for $30,000 called The Laws of Gravity, and how he got it done and how he got it made. You'll see a little documentary about it. I'll post it. Um, he got sold at Sundance, and he got a career. I see that he directs mostly television now, but at least he's got a career going. Um, the other film was Living Oblivion, done by a Japanese American gay director named Greg Araki, and his movie is Living in Oblivion, and it cost about $25,000 to make, which is really cheap, folks, and probably 2 weeks to film. And it's about essentially a couple gay hustler types, and one of them, they both, I think they both have AIDS or HIV, and so they go on kind of a crime spree. They're going to live fast and leave a good-looking corpse. And it was filmed in black and white. Um, it's an exciting film, edgy, cool, um, exactly what Sundance needed. And then the big film that year was Reservoir Dogs. Maybe you've heard of that. It's Quentin Tarantino's debut film, um, but he had a bigger budget. He had actual movie performers in his first movie. He had sold a couple scripts already to Hollywood. Natural Born Killers was one of them. True Romance was another that were made by two different directors, Tony Scott and Natural Born Killers. I'm going to forget his name. It's horrible. I like this. Oh, Oliver Stone. Yeah, and it was very edgy, violent films. Maybe you've seen them, maybe not. So I had already sold a couple of these scripts, and he was had this other script called Reservoir Dogs, and he met an actor, Harvey Keitel, who had been in Scorsese's films, been in some major motion pictures, and he took a liking to the script, and he decided to try to find ways to get it financed. And then through his connection and the people wanting to work with him, because Tarantino was an unknown quality, but everybody loved who read the script, loved the script. And of course, he wanted to direct now. And that was a bold choice because a lot of times first time directors don't know what the hell they're doing. This is a guy who studied film from the time he was a young man working in video stores. He knew his directing style would be directly taken from Chinese filmmakers like John Woo and others because that was his. He loved what they call grindhouse cinema, um, and so he took his style from that. So he knew what he was doing, obviously. And the movie is about some criminals who are going to pull off a diamond heist, and of course, it was a huge failure. And now they're being pursued by the police and being killed off. And then the whole movie is almost like a play. It takes place in a warehouse where the criminals are waiting for the guys to bring the diamonds back, and then they start picking on each other and mistrusting each other, and essentially all hell breaks out loose, and nobody comes out good in this movie. Um, Witty dialogue, fun dialogue, edgy, and very cool looking. And I would, and it was a huge hit. And then people could really see what you could do in a small budgeted movie. He had about $1.5 million, which is larger than most Sundance movies. And but people started looking at how and using it as a template for their next movie. Other film festivals were getting popular at the time. There's always been Berlin Film Festival, Venice Film Festival in Europe, Cannes Film Festival. Maybe you heard of those. Those were almost impossible to get into unless you had big top stars in your movie. And in order to do that, you got to have the real money and real everything. But you can't just do a little small budgeted movie on 16 millimeter with your friends and get into the Cannes Film Festival. But you know, Sundance. Then there's another film festival in Telluride called the Telluride Film Festival, and very prestigious. Has anybody been to Telluride, Colorado? I suggest you go. Has anybody ever been to Park City, Utah, where they have Sundance? It's wonderful. It's a resort town about 40 miles outside of the town of Salt Lake, Utah. Um, then there's Toronto Film Festival. This is really big over the years. The Tribeca Film Festival in New York, the New York Film Festival, San Francisco Film Festival. A lot of these film festivals are really, really important. Almost every major city has its own festival, even small towns. Even Reading has its festival, the Sundial Bridge Festival, Palm Springs Festival, Mill Valley Festival. Ashland has a film festival. And because there are ways to see independent films that aren't going through the Hollywood system, that you might see something original and edgy and real as compared to an endless sequel with somebody in a cape. And that's the beauty of these film festivals. Now, over the years, they've 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 gotten too bloated and big, and now people get into Sundance. They're 30, $40 million movies, and they star movie stars because nobody wants to take a chance anymore in a small budgeted movie. Distrib- they want a for sure thing. They want to be able to have a known star to star in the movie before they'll buy it from you. And so it's getting harder and harder to find the low budget 16 millimeter movie of the 90s. That would be the last glory years. It was like the last glory years for rock and roll. You know, I'm a rock and roll fan, and grunge, the Seattle grunge scene, in my opinion, is the last gasp of real rock and roll. Sorry, folks, if you love your Miley Cyrus's and your Henry whoever Styles and Mariah Carey's, it ain't rock and roll. It's popular music done to with a bunch of dancers and show tunes. Yes, sorry, folks. Even poor Taylor Swift. Uh, so Sundance was very much like the Grunge theme. It was a last gasp effort for real independent filmmaking, and you had a hope and chance. The hope and chance right now is you just make a movie and you stick it up on YouTube somewhere and you get some followers. Um, you can do that. You can get an audience. Where they're going to get a career out of it, very doubtful. Um, yeah, so Sundance came to riding in a horse to save the day. And for many years, it worked. Even Robert Redford has said he wants to dial back the success of it and go back to the old days where they're looking for the small film made by people nobody's ever heard of. Would you go see a movie that you don't know anybody? Does does the actors you like have to be in a movie for you to go see it? Would you go see a movie without anybody you know? That's why I like foreign films because most times I don't know these actors. I find it's easier for me to believe their characters if it's not Johnny Depp or Brad Pitt or Sandra Bullock because I know them and they're just acting. Whereas you watch a film like Parasite, which came out of South Korea, I don't know those people. So I was more engaged, I was more involved in the story because I simply don't know them as celebrities. I don't know who they're dating or how many drugs they take or what cars they drive. But that's all we become in this culture, the celebrity culture. And and Sundance has definitely fallen victim to that recently. Okay, that's it. I'm going to shut up. Another movie that came out during that time, a little later, Clerks. Maybe you've seen it. Kevin Smith really hit the zeitgeist with his kind of slacker movie on Clerks in a video store. Um, Also, another one that really hit the zeitgeist at the time was called Slackers by Richard Linklater from Austin, Texas. I'm going to talk more about this as we go along because we're not done talking about these independent filmmakers. They're important. So I'm going to talk on Wednesday. I'll talk about some people that have made an indelible mark in cinema history. People like Richard Linklater, Robert Rodriguez, Hal Hartley, and others. And we will talk about that Wednesday. This is Independent Week. We're on the road to Sundance. Come on and join me.